All right, so I have another Seiko Grand Quartz to show you guys. This one is the 9942-8020, and similar to the Grand Quartz that I showed a few months ago, this one has a ton of gold, especially with this gold bracelet that it was included with. But definitely the star of the show is that dial. So let's start by talking about that. People like to call this the diamond dust dial, but I like to call it the cracked ice dial. You can see the different etchings, and if I zoom in here, just look at that. That is beautiful. And not only is it beautiful, this watch is still quite legible thanks to those indices and the hands. You can see there's that black stripe for each one. That way you can read the time relatively easy. The seconds hand might be a little bit difficult, but otherwise it's still great. And this, and including the other Grand Quartz I showed you, I believe they really show off their dials with the camera. Some watches just don't look good when you take videos or photos of them, but this one definitely, it looks even better on a camera because it can really catch the reflections and all the textures there. You can see that for this Seiko Grand Quartz, we do have this symbol here. This means that it's a twin quartz. So there's two quartz oscillators. It's supposed to be more accurate, although of course this watch is, I think, probably like 50 or 60 years old now. It's probably not as accurate as it used to be, but because it is twin quartz, it is relatively accurate. And of course at the 3 o'clock, we do have the date window and day date, also bordered by a black and gold border. So really awesome. I really like that dial. Now let's talk about the case next. So the case is a vintage style case. So you don't really see the lugs. Of course, there are still lug holes. That way you can put the bracelet on, but there is no kind of definitive change from the case down to the lugs. This is a vintage style. So most watch companies don't have this style of case anymore. The only company that I can think of that still does this is Timex, because they have their kind of vintage re-releases and they'll have this style. So some people don't like it. I don't mind it. It definitely makes it more chunky because you don't see that tapering that you see with watches that do have the lugs, but I don't seem to mind it really. And it looks nice. It's got a nice level of polishing. It's not too scratched up. You can see the crown there. It also has that twin quartz logo, which is very nice. I like having signed crowns. It's just such a nice detail. But the case, yeah, it's quite reflective, quite nice. There is some deterioration you can see right over here as well as over there. And yeah, that's unfortunate, but you know what? If you're a 6-year-old watch and it's from Japan, which is quite a humid environment, you do have those issues over there. And speaking of issues, this watch looks really great from this angle here. You can see that the dial is relatively untouched. It's in great condition. But if I open this watch up and I show you the back, so the stainless steel back, oh, let's do it this way. The stainless steel back is fine. No issues, right? Nothing too obvious. But if you look at the back over here, yeah, you can see there is some, I guess, corrosion. You can see especially there's some corrosion over here. What likely happened, or what I think happened, is that over the years, the gold plating kind of wore off. And then behind the gold plating, there is not stainless steel. It's just some sort of generic metal. And that metal started to corrode. And again, especially in Japan, and if you have a really sweaty person wearing this watch, then you will see some corrosion. So unfortunately, the back is in not as good condition, but in some ways that's okay because you don't really see the back of the watch, except for the wearer, except for the owner. You're really not going to see the back of the watch. And thankfully, the front of the watch is still in good condition. Now the bracelet here, it is a third-party bracelet, which is a little bit unfortunate because these watches did come with a gold bracelet of a similar style, but I can tell that this is third-party because the Grand Quartz watches would have GQ onto the clasp here. So this one is a generic one. You can see 18 millimeters. It's in good condition though. And this is the brand actually. Snakes, I guess. Never heard of the brand before. Yeah, it's in good condition. It does match the case, but yeah, I think it would have been nicer if it did come with the original bracelet. But then again, this would have been probably more expensive if it did come with that original bracelet. So let's get it on my 6-inch wrist. You can see that it does fit quite nicely without those lugs to point out. It's actually, it feels, again, I said it was bulky, and maybe if this case was bigger, it would feel bulky, but because the overall case size is small, it actually fits my wrist pretty well. But yeah, look at that dial. It looks super nice. I think this would really stand out. And you know, who says that quartz watches are boring? Because I think this one, the dial really does, it is the star of the show. And in terms of price, you can find the Grand Quartz for about $200, sometimes more, sometimes less. It really depends on the condition of the dial, whether or not there's a bracelet included, especially if it's the original bracelet, the condition of the movement, the condition of the case. There's a bunch of different factors, but you can bet that you'll find one for about $200 Canadian, maybe $150 Canadian. But yeah, these are a great bargain if you're looking for a nice quartz watch, right? Because if you want to buy a brand new Seiko quartz watch, they're gonna be at least $200, sometimes even $300. And with those ones, even though it's new and they're not gonna have as many scratches and stuff or deterioration, I feel like new watches just don't have as much charm and as much attention to detail as vintage watches like these. And finally, let's just compare the Seiko Grand Quartz with the Seiko Grand Quartz. So this one I reviewed a few months ago, and yeah, they both have really nice dials. If you just catch the light, you can see that they have this nice texture to them, lots and lots of gold. I really like that. I really like the Grand Quartz lineup. I feel like they're kind of a hidden gem among Seiko's collection. Because remember that the Seiko Grand Quartz was the replacement for Grand Seiko. So these watches, they weren't just cheap throwaways. They were meant to be high quality, very nice quartz watches. You can see that the Grand Quartz here is a single quartz. This one is the twin quartz. And if we flip to the back here, you'll notice that both watches have that same battery hatch, but that corrosion, yeah, it happened to both, because you can see here, the gold is peeling off. It just reveals that dark gray metal beneath. This one has the same thing. It seems to be just an issue with these gold-plated watches. They just seem to deteriorate over time. But thankfully for both of these watches, the dial is essentially untouched. And so if you live in a drier climate like I do in Edmonton, it's not that humid, these watches probably would have been in better shape. But again, it's still in pretty good shape. And the most important thing is that the dial has not been damaged at all. So anyways, that is it for my Seiko Grand Quartz video. I just want to feature this watch, and so that if you're ever interested in the Grand Quartz, you get to see some footage of this beautiful watch. It's kind of nice that people don't know too much about this watch, and that means you can get it from Yahoo Auctions Japan with relative ease, but you just got to make sure you find one that has a good condition dial. Because if the dial is messed up, also if the crystal is messed up, you're not able to appreciate that diamond dust over the cracked ice dial. And on that note, thank you again for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more videos. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.